What would Clash Royale ever be without its broken cards? Probably a lot more balanced, but definitely a lot less profitable, which is why Supercell doesn't bother. It's the current reality of the game now. Supercell releases a new hero or evolution that's basically a win button. It stays broken just long enough for the whales to max it out, and then magically, the second it becomes accessible to free-to-play players, the emergency nerf hammer comes swinging. Or the recent controversy where they don't care a lot about the broken cards they release for free. Today we're looking at the cards that broke our trust with the devs, and I'll try to fix them as well with my own ideas, or the ideas provided by the community. Number 1. Suspicious Bush. Starting the video with a controversial card already, the Suspicious Bush is a textbook example of the broken cycle we'll talk about soon. It was released in July of 2024 as part of the Goblin Queen's journey and immediately polarized the community. There are the pro players who think that it's one of the worst cards in the game, and then the rest of the players who believe it's balanced and doesn't need anything done to it. Similarly to the Royal Ghost, the Suspicious Bush is invisible and completely untargetable to opposing troops, forcing the enemy to pop a spell, distract it with a building, or spend elixir on a troop that defends against it, because if you let it go undefended, oh boy. Despite being quite fragile, the damage the Bush Goblins deal is phenomenal for their elixir cost, which is 2 elixir. Yeah, 2. It pretty much has 0 defensive capabilities, it messes up troop targeting and interactions, making it hard to defend against properly, and is a menace to your towers. If you take a level 15 Suspicious Bush, a single Bush Goblin deals 372 damage per hit. But there are 2 Bush Goblins, so they deal 744 damage together with 1.4 second hit speed. That is a lot if you don't have your defenses. Now, you can look at it from the perspective that it is a risky, sneaky bush you could send against your opponent, and if it makes it to their tower, you get rewarded. But how can you call a card risky when it costs 2 elixir? There is 0 commitment to the card whatsoever. It's fun to play with them, sure, it's nice to see big damage and get a neuron activation out of it, but when you're defending against it, it's not so much fun since you're forced to defend it. Sure, it's not hard to counter at all, just use a spell or Barbarian Barrel, I mean, come on, it's not that hard, but this is what a lot of people are defending the card with. It's fragile and not that hard to take out if you have the counters. But the issue is that it is a very cheap card that can do loads of damage, and you get no positive trade out of it, which makes it pretty unbalanced. Another point pro players make is that it changes the interactions with other troops. While it's invisible, it can still push troops around, breaking their formation, which can be detrimental sometimes. What if your goblin gets separated and pushed into a zap? It also is used quite a bit in popular decks, which are also filled with broken cards that we will soon talk about, don't you worry. One of the decks the card lives in, and is essentially the cornerstone of, is Hyperbait, which is one of the most frustrating experiences in modern Clash Royale. Interestingly enough, from what I've read in the comments and posts, it's actually only the pro players who really complain about the card. Meanwhile, the casuals defend it, and my hypothesis was also backed by Boss CR, one of the Clash Royale content creators. So the mechanics are clearly broken, and we know exactly why the community is losing its mind over this 2 elixir bush. So how can we actually fix it? Well, I got a couple ideas. But the most simple nerf I can think of is to just nerf the damage so it makes sense for a 2 elixir card. If they nerf it by like 20 to 40%, that should be good enough. Of course, the numbers need to be more precise than that, but if they want to keep the power, then they have to increase the cost. Moving it to 3 elixir forces the player to actually commit. Right now, you can just brainlessly cycle it at the bridge because 2 elixir, you're never really punished for it. At 3, you have to think twice before spamming it randomly. Although there was another cool one I had. What if there was a small detection timer until the troops realized that there was a bush moving around the arena? Let's say the opponent sends barbarians after you and your bush is about to pass by them. And the timer of, let's say, 2.5 seconds goes off. The barbarians realize that that's no ordinary plant, but small goblins sneaking past them. It's a cool idea, but it would be very inconsistent in my opinion, since the timer would need to be just right, and it also depends on troops' movement speeds, but hey, the game's already inconsistent with abilities, so why not? Number 2. Skeleton Barrel's Evolution. Another card that complements the Suspicious Bush is the good old Skeleton Barrel, but evolved. The card represents the same low-risk, high-reward that makes the meta so polarizing. When you drop the evolved skeleton barrel, you're sending a double-layered nightmare. The second barrel is timed to pop just a bit after the first, which is specifically designed to bait out your small spell early. But here's the real kicker. If you let both of those barrels reach the tower simultaneously, they burst at the exact same time. Instead of a single barrel, you're looking at around a medium-sized skeleton army dropping directly on your princess tower. And keep in mind that this evolution was extremely busted when it first came out, and it wasn't free either, you had to pay for it. Now, the main reason why people hate this card is that it's annoying. It's not really considered to be broken itself, but the decks it's in are really frustrating to play against. Hyperbait, remember? And it's death damage, the pop does enough damage to kill bats or skeletons that are around it. You have to counter it with other troops or spells. So how do we actually fix this? Honestly, it's a lot more complicated than just tweaking a few numbers. The easiest solution the community usually points to is a direct hit to the base stats, nerfing the HP, damage, or movement speed, but if I'm being real, I don't think the skeleton barrel itself is the core problem. It does exactly what it was designed to do. I think the issue is the decks built around it. When you're constantly dealing with a cycle of hyperbait cards, every card starts feeling overpowered. That's why I think indirect nerfs are the smartest move. If Supercell buffs the defensive options or changes how certain spells interact with bait, they could fix the meta without completely killing off Skeleton Barrel as a viable card. But if you still want to take the direct nerf route, the most effective change would be the death damage. If you reduce the pop damage so it no longer one-shots cheap swarm cards like bats or skellies, you could suddenly give the defender a way to answer it without being forced to burn a spell every single time. It's not the best, but I mean, hey, it's a tough decision. However, you know what isn't a tough decision? Scrolling down and clicking that sub button. Well, seriously, it does help us out a lot because these videos take a lot of time and effort to make, so seriously, help is greatly appreciated. All right, number 3, Hero Mega Minion. Now let's talk about the Hero Mega Minion. And oh boy, this one is actually insane. Supercell basically gave this guy a literal grappling gun and a teleportation drive and thought, you know, yeah, this kind of seems balanced. It's the regular 3 Elixir Mega Minion we've known for years, but now with a new hero ability called Wounding Warp. With the ability, the Hero Mega Minion targets the troop or building with the lowest max HP on the entire arena and warps to them instantly. And there's no limit to the range. So as soon as you put him down, a black circle appears under an enemy unit, and that's the mark of death. It tells you exactly where he's going to nuke. Though luckily, as we've said, he picks the lowest max HP target, and if there's a tie, he picks the one furthest away. Even if your opponent drops a lower HP unit later, he won't switch, he stays locked on that target until it is dead or you hit that button. And the warp damage on arrival, a massive 657 if he's level 16. He one-shots almost every support troop in the game, even if they're hiding behind an elixir collector or the king tower. It doesn't matter because the range limit doesn't exist. His damage was nerfed in March by 12%, so the number we mentioned is the current one. It is still a lot. If you don't see a problem with that, you're clearly not playing Clash Royale the right way. This game is supposed to be about calculated interactions and outpositioning your opponent. The flying nuke throws that calculation right out the window. He can appear in the middle of your push, delete your counter troop, and then act as a meat shield. Plus, he's invulnerable while teleporting, meaning he can force enemies to retarget right as they're about to kill him. So thank God you can only use the ability once per deployment, and it can't target crown towers directly. They even tried to balance it out by cutting his warp damage to towers by 50%, but let's be real. That is nothing. For a 5 elixir total investment, you get a cross-map auto-aiming delete button that ignores every rule of lane placement. Honestly, I do like how the new design for Mega Minion looks and that the ability is a nod to Assassin's Creed, I assume, which is very cool. I like the thought, but what were they thinking? And to fix it, we could reduce the warp damage to like 350 at most. It'd be able to kill weak troops, but give beefier troops some time to retaliate. Removing the warp damage would render the hero useless, so I mean, we kinda gotta work with it. He'll stay a sniper, but a much less lethal one. Number 4, Evolved Royal Ghost. Royal Ghost has always been the game-breaking card in Clash Royale. When he was first introduced in the game, he redefined the meta. I remember back in 2018 when he was released, the community went absolutely wild, and getting him from the chests was such an excitement. He forced the game to reset on his terms. There was even a whole saga where Supercell took away his ability to hover over the river, essentially grounding the most famous spirit in the arena. And if you know his lore, which you can find a lot of them on our channel, he looks even cooler. Fast forward to the end of 2025, and the Ghost has officially gone off the hook. With this new evolution, he brings his own personal army with him. Every time he comes out of invisibility to land a hit, he triggers his entourage ability, summoning a pair of soldiers right on the spot. You know, get it? Soldiers, soul plus soldiers. Dumb pun, Supercell, but you know, I gotta give props where it's due. Anyway, they deal spawn damage the second they appear, which is enough to clear out small swarms instantly. Now, the crazy part is that the soldiers don't have a lot of HP, basically the same as a skeleton, but they deal the exact same damage as the Royal Ghost himself. While the Ghost acts as the main shield, his soldiers are right there beside him, shredding through your defense. And don't think he only spawns them once. No, every single time he goes invisible and reappears for another strike, he spawns another pair of soldiers. If you don't kill the main ghost quickly, the arena could become a sea of invisible spirits. It's unlikely for him to summon 3 pairs in a single life during a normal match, but not impossible. It turns a 3 elixir legendary into a summoning machine that can single-handedly take down a tower if you don't have a splash attacker ready to go, like the Valkyrie, who was the direct counter to him. Now, he isn't exactly a tank with only 1210 HP at tournament standard. He's actually pretty fragile if he gets caught up in the open. A well-placed Valkyrie can still shut him down completely, especially since she can tank his first big hit and then spin down all of his soldiers at once. But even with that lower health, the ability itself is just bonkers. Visually, this evolution looks badass. The way the soldiers materialize out of thin air looks incredible, but that beauty comes with a lot of pain for the opponent. Supercell knew they messed up almost immediately. The card was so dominant on release that they had to hit it with a massive 49% damage reduction to the soldiers. Then in December 2025, they came back for more, nerfing the soldiers' melee and spawn damage by another 22%. That balanced the numbers out a bit, sure, but the mechanic is what's broken. According to most top players, even with those heavy nerfs, the Evolved Ghost is still one of the most oppressive cards in the game today. While he mainly lives in Royal Hog decks, he is still incredibly viable in many others. Fixing the Ghost is a nightmare, and honestly, that's probably why Supercell took so long to touch him again. But in the March 2026 balance changes, they finally pulled the trigger on a subtle but brilliant nerf. They increased his invisibility delay from 1.8 to 2.0 seconds. That extra window keeps him visible for just long enough for a tower or musketeer to land one more shot before he vanishes. But more importantly, it creates a hard cap on his ability to spawn soldiers. By staying visible longer, he's much more likely to be taken out before he can reset and summon a second entourage. It doesn't kill the card, but it finally stops him from being an infinite spirit factory. It's just enough to bring him back down to earth, back down to the grave. This section was full of puns. Number 5. Hero Goblins. Did you know what creatures I hate the most in folklore? Goblins. They're kind of disgusting. They're depicted as green, terrifying humanoids who love treasure and kill without a second thought. Clash Royale's goblins, however, are pretty cool. I like them. They're cool, silly, and their hero variant, though, just kind of enrages me. The hero goblins arrived early in 2026, and their ability quickly made players want to put them in the hyperbait. For just 2 elixir, you get a squad of goblins. Now, on the surface, they seem fine, just normal goblins with no stat boosts, but their 1 elixir ability, Banner Brigade, is where the enraging part begins. When the last hero goblin dies, he doesn't fully disappear. Instead, he leaves behind a fallen banner that stays on the ground for 5 seconds. For just 1 extra elixir, you can activate that banner to summon a brigade of 3 more goblins right on the spot. If you think about that, for a total of 3 elixir, your opponent gets 7 goblins. If that banner is sitting on your tower and you don't have a spell or a cheap troop ready at the exact second when they pop the ability, your tower is under danger. It creates this toxic cycle where you're forced to save your small spells for the first wave, only to get punished by the second wave a second later. It actually used to be worse because there were 4 goblins instead of 3 with the ability, making it 8 in total for 3 elixir. And the banner timer was 7 seconds, which is absolutely insane. They're everywhere, especially in the hyperbait decks along with Evo Skeleton Barrel, Hero Magic Archer, Evolved Royal Hogs, and Royal Ghost. It's absolutely wild. Fixing this card is very simple, actually. Make the banner destructible, like the Phoenix Egg, or increase the cost of the ability to 2 elixir, which makes it more fair with elixir. Number 6, Hero Magic Archer. And for our last broken card in CR, we have, you guessed it, the Hero Magic Archer. To be honest, I'm still very confused about this decision since Magic Archer did not need a hero variant. Normal Magic Archer was and still is a great, powerful card which was balanced and worked really well, but Supercell had to make him into a hero, and oh boy, the controversy they got is nuts. Let's talk about what he does first until we dabble in the drama. When he first arrived in 2018, he was memed as the ultimate geometry card. His arrow traveled 11 tiles, which meant that if you were smart, you could use an enemy troop as a bridge to snipe down crown towers from your side of the map. He spent years as the backbone of P.E.K.K.A bridge spam, and honestly, he was one of the most rewarding cards to master. But fast forward to the 10th anniversary in March of 2026, and Supercell decided that geometry wasn't enough. They turned him into a hero, and oh boy, the Hero Magic Archer is a complete nightmare. What makes him so broken is that he acts as both a support card and a win condition. His 1 elixir ability, Triple Threat, allows him to stay alive when doing massive damage to towers. When you tap that button, he performs a 5-tile backward dash, leaving a decoy of himself with 627 HP to tank for him. While your troops are busy hitting a fake, the real Magic Archer fires a triple shot with a massive 15.5 tile range. That is more than double his normal sight range, although they deal less damage than his regular shots, thankfully. If he's positioned at the bridge, those arrows can literally reach the King Tower, which does put the user at a disadvantage, a clever way to balance him out, but he's still strong. Supercell actually knew he was too strong. He was nerfed before he was even released. During the playtest, they had to increase his ability cooldown to 25 seconds and drop his decoy's health just to give players a chance. But it really didn't do anything at all. He's still everywhere, he fits perfectly into almost every top tier deck right now, Royal Hogs, Goblin Drill, P.E.K.K.A, etc. But the place where he's truly busted, it's the Hog decks. It's the ultimate toxic pairing, because those decks also run the other new hero, the Hero Barbarian Barrel. Pro players were even bold enough to compare them to prime P.E.K.K.A Goblin Giant decks, which is crazy if you remember what kind of nightmare those were. Even people who played these cycle-type decks were not defending it. It's that busted and unfair. Visually, it's actually pretty cool. Supercell even added small math equations that appear at the end of the arrow trails as a nod to, the geometry meme. But cool visuals don't stop the frustration of getting your tower sniped from the other side of the arena. To add salt into the injury, he was a free hero who was extremely busted on release, and yet Supercell isn't doing anything about it, which leads players to believe that if he was a paid hero, Supercell would have milked the potential out of him and then nerfed him, but they're really not doing anything at all about the free one, they just kinda let him be. Magic Archer was already powerful enough before. He didn't need this, but hey, more money. Balancing a card like the Hero Magic Archer is a nightmare because you have to nerf his cheap survival without killing the geometry that makes him fun to play. Since he's dominating the 2026 meta alongside Hero Barbarian Barrel, the community has been vocal about how to bring him back down to earth. The first suggestion is to increase the ability cost because 1 elixir is way too cheap for a 5-tile dash, a decoy, and a 15-tile range. Increasing it to at least 2 would already be better. 3 would be good, to my opinion, but that's a bit too much. We don't want to kill the card. We could also nerf the decoy's HP even more, maybe down to 200, making it almost one hit and giving opposing troops an opportunity to attack the Magic Archer. We could also reduce the ability's massive range by a couple of tiles, but I think this would kill the whole King Tower activation mechanic, which I think was intentional. So, do you think you can balance these cards out better than we did? If so, leave your ideas down in the comments. I'll be interested to read what you guys can come up with. And while you're down there, you could just click on another video where I talk about the 10 cards you gotta evolve right now. I'll see you there.